Kingston upon Hull, everybody. What a wonderful city. Home to the cream-coloured phone box. Boiled sweets were invented in Hull. Great. We also have Hull to thank for LCD screens and Lemsip. The George Hotel in Hull is claiming to have the smallest window in England. 10 by 1, if you're wondering. It's the birthplace of Amy Johnson, the first female pilot to fly alone from Great Britain to Australia. Pinewood Studios, yes, film people. Pinewood Studios was founded by the Hull-born J. Arthur Rank. Hull was also named the highest proportion to have the highest proportion of snorers in 2002. Most snorers come from Hull. The 2017 Capital of Culture was also where Jon Wilkin was born on a pig farm. And we have two Hullensians for you this week because Scott Taylor joins us as well. Scott Taylor, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And look,
I mean, right?
Hullensians is right, Flash. That's the right. Hullensians is exactly the right way to say it.
That sounds exotic.
It's not exotic at all, is it, Scott?
Definitely not.
And look, Scott, the only reason we've got you on this week, to be honest, is because we've been trolled so much on social media saying you only ever get people in Lancashire, in the Lancashire bubble on this Out of Your League podcast. So we've travelled 100 miles down the road, down the M62 this week, just to get Scott on. Look, unlike Jon Wilkin, who packed his bags for the pretentious Cheshire countryside, you stuck by your city, Scott, loud and proud. No Hull girls were good enough for our Wilkin. Janet next door on the pig farm wouldn't suffice. He needed an Olympian carved from the finest stone and two little cock-a-weasel dogs who couldn't be less Hull if they tried. But look, I mean, in terms of Wilkin's name in the city, is it mud, Scott? Because you know better than most.
Do you know what? I think a lot of people don't realise John's from Hull, to be honest.
He's lost the accent, hasn't he?
I was speaking to, it might have been Josh Reynolds on the coach, because he was on about some of the guys who had been on Sky, and he mentioned Jon Wilkin. I said, you do know as an old lad, he actually was OKR as a youth, and he was in complete shock. I think he'd watched a bit of, obviously, plenty of games, a big rugby league fan, so he thought he was a St Helens boy through and through.
Well, I'll tell you this, I was playing at the KC Stadium, and I think I made my debut on the wing for Saints at the KC Stadium. And I'll never forget, obviously, I've been a Hull lad, grown up in Hull my whole life. And I got banjoed by somebody, can't remember who. And just heard this guy go, that's right, you scouse bastard. And I was like, fucking hell, I left Hull like 18 months ago, do you know what I mean? I've only just left. My accent, which I've been trying to like cover up for the last 20 years, was still fully strong then. So at that moment, Scott, I think people were a bit confused. I think because I left. I think that's the first thing. I actually left Hull, which is quite a unique thing in itself, I think.
Not a lot of rugby lads leave Hull, do they?
No, a lot of people were surprised when I jumped ship and obviously come across to Wigan, but I lasted a few years and then moved back.
Yeah, good lad.
Look, not a lot of people know that Jon Wilkin's father, the man who dragged John up on this pig farm, scouted you as a young boy, Scott.
Yeah, Big Bad Pip. He was. I remember he used to. At the time, I didn't really know who he was, but come to about the under-16s with my amateur team, and Pip would go and watch sort of amateur rugby games at the time, and I always remember him grabbing me after one of the games and seeing if I would signed up to anywhere. Just said that I'd been watching a few of the games and impressed, and I just said no, and he was like, right, I work a bit with OKR, so I'll be in touch, and then that was it. Yeah, so it was John's dad Pip who reached out and gave me a shot. Really,
He's quite an intimidating man as well, Pip, isn't he? Big hands, man's face, and I think when he said you come into Rovers, you probably didn't have much of a choice, did you?
I didn't tell him I was an FC fan, no.
But the thing with my dad, right? The thing with my dad is, like, I don't know how regulated that industry is right now. I can't remember my dad ever telling me that he was a scout. Do you know what I mean? He's just going watching, like, junior rugby league matches around Hull, tapping lads on the shoulder like Scott and telling them, hey Scott, why don't you sign for Rovers? And he's like, well, I'm not sure I'm not sure my dad ever was a scout. And if my dad's watching this, which he isn't, because he's a technological Neanderthal, he's probably like chopping logs in a shed somewhere on his own. Dad, I'm not sure you ever had the authority to go out and sign players, but it might be one of the only things he got right. he spotted the talent in Scott Taylor. So I think for all of his failures, I think my dad might still be dining out in the Crooked Billet in Rye Hill on Scott Taylor's career from that point onwards.
Oh, by the way, chopping logs in the shed is euphemism for smashing Carol, by the way, just in case you didn't know what that was. Look, Scott, for those who don't know, Scott, how big is that rivalry between Hull KR and Hull FC? Because look, you were a boyhood, a lifelong, and still are Hull FC fan, and then you ended up joining Hull KR. All your mates at school were Hull FC fans. You must have got so much shit when you signed for Hull KR.
Yeah, I took some stick, but look, it's just the way the opportunity presented itself. And to be honest, there was some players in a lot better position, in the same position me, who were a lot better than me at the time, who had signed for Hull. Knew I probably wouldn't even get a chance there at the time. So just happy to have signed with anyone at the time. But yeah, it was a tough one for me personally. I remember getting a lot of crap for it. All my family are all FC fans, so it was always the usual case of, we'll come and watch you. We hope you play well, but we don't want you to win. And it was always that sort of case growing up. But no, it sort of penned me into who I am now and the career I've had, so I won't take it back.
And you and Liam Watts came through at the same time as front row partners at FC. Oh, sorry, at KR.
Yeah, well, Watsy was at Cass, and I think KR had signed him straight to first team. Watsy's a year above me, so I started training first team when I was 17, and yeah, Watsy had just been signed from Cass straight to first team. But at the time, I was a back rower. I actually debuted to play at back row, and then basically going into that was in 2009, and then basically we had Clint Newton and Ben Gleer in the back row. So Justin Morgan just said, "Look, you're not going to get in the back row. Why don't you play in the front row? I think you could do a job." So it was bit of a license for me just to go in the off season and eat loads of food, get as fat as I could, put some weight on, and never look back.
There's no going back when you move in either. Once you're in, there's no going back to back row, is there?
No, Flash. Once you move into that middle, that's it. That's game over. That's a one-stop shop, isn't it? Once you end up in the middle. But Scott, that's it's a big call, that. As a young kid, I think a lot of guys get presented with opportunities, right? And your temptation is to take the best team. You didn't do that. You had the foresight to maybe think that your opportunity to play rugby at Hull KR was greater. Did that feel like a big decision at the time? And how much thought did you put into it?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of thought because Hull FC did come in like a bit later on before anything was done, and it was a massive head and heart decision. In all seriousness, I did wait a few nights to speak to my old man about it a lot. But look, I was 16. I just wanted to play rugby. I just wanted to be out there, and I knew going to Hull FC at that time, I'd just be another number, and I knew there was players. I was never playing for my country at a young age growing up. I was never on any scholarships, and lads in the city who had already signed, and I knew I'd been down in the pecking order. I just wanted to play rugby, so went with my head. Turned out the best choice.
Where are they now, Scott? Name names. Who was in front of you back then?
There was none of them made it big time really. There was second rows at
not big time like you.
Scott.
There was a couple of second rows. I'll say Liam and Ryan at West Hull, the arch rivals who didn't end up going on too much. I think Liam might have played a couple of first team games, but after a few years, there was both back amateur rugby. So it's mental how it works out, isn't it?
Look, Wilco, I know we've been banging on about you fleeing the city when you were a young boy, but look, you know how much people in that city of Hull bleed rugby league if you're to cut them in half. And I remember you saying to me years ago, one of your biggest regrets in your career was not playing in a Hull derby.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm like Liam. I grew up. My love for rugby was from the city of Hull, and I was a Hull KR fan. I was a ball boy at Hull KR from age like 10 to 15, 16. I made my debut for Hull KR the year after I'd been a ball boy for the club. You know what I mean? It was just a huge passion of mine, and rugby in Hull is huge, and it's just part of the culture down there, and in some ways similar to Scott. What I did looking back, I had the opportunity to sign for. The reason I asked the question of Scott earlier is because I was offered the opportunity to sign for Wigan or Leeds, or Hull KR, and I chose Hull KR back then, who were a championship team, and I thought a lot about that decision at the time. It was easier because it was my childhood club, like I probably subconsciously wanted to make my dad proud and play for the team that he'd always supported and whatnot. But still, it was a big decision for me back then to say, right, I'm not gonna take the best opportunity performance-wise, or I suppose ego-wise, to sign for the biggest and best club. And I made
Is this
a really
a dig at
sensible...
Mark, by the way, who signed for Wigan in 2009?
No, not at all. But indirectly, yes, it is. It's not at all. No, look, there's loads of journeys to get to where you want to get to. It's just it interested me, Scott's decision, because I saw a real rational thought. Usually they're really emotional decisions, right? And you just make an emotional decision on what will, self-serve your ego at that time. And for me, when I was making that call, look, I wanted to do my A-levels. I wanted to go on to university. Hull KR, was a club where I could do that, but I could play. I could actually go and play rugby. And all the time I was, and same with Scott, from a young age, we were playing. There's lads who are stuck in an academy system who aren't playing against men. And look, I'm a big believer that the quicker you get out there and play against men as a young athlete, the more competent you'll be. But just to go back to your question, Will, rugby in Hull is huge. It's a really strong rivalry, but I think that rivalry it's actually quite well mannered and nice. You know what I mean? It's not as aggressive, I don't think, as it maybe used to be or perceived to be. But it's certainly, like, for young kids in the city of Hull, rugby is a way to just be exceptional at something and be renowned for being good at something, and that's without doubt, something to celebrate for that city.
Mark, you're allowed your retaliation now.
No, I'm yeah. When I look, I've never really thought about it, to be honest, and I'd never changed my career and decisions I made, but when I look back, I made my debut for Wigan at 21, and I had a few injuries. I had some bad injuries before that, but I was stuck behind probably 4 or 5 internationals, and we had Sean O'Loughlin, Gareth Hawke, Phil Bailey, Harrison Hansen, Joel Tompkins, and there was myself, Liam Farrell, and Lee Mossop, who both played internationals above me, all vying for a back row spot. And when I think I probably could have played Super League a couple of years younger than when I actually did, but I was stuck in this system behind some really good players, and obviously it's made me the player I am today. But yeah, I've never thought of it like that. But when John mentions actually getting out playing men's rugby at a younger age and probably developing at a younger age, I never did that, and I went through a different route. But you never know where it might have taken you, though.
Look, Scott, I get accused a lot of being the Southern Fairy in rugby league. I tell you what, I've never been to a Hull derby, and I'd absolutely love to go to one. Look, John's celebrity broadcasting friend, Adrian Durham, was at university in Hull, and that's why he fell in love. I mean, he's a London boy, and that's why he's from Peterborough, but that's why he fell in love with rugby from going to a Hull derby when he was at uni. Did you play? You must have played in one when you were at KR against FC.
Yeah, I did. I played in a few. All in a few for KR against Hull, and I've obviously played both sides of the board at both stadiums.
That must have been weird, though, that in a KR shirt, you must have felt like you were going to catch on fire.
Yeah, it was a really weird one, and obviously you sort of imagine it of you walking out in a black and white shirt when you're growing up, don't you? And not in the red and white shirt or all your family have the banter with and get into. So it was weird. But look, we got a job to do. And I knew one day I wanted to hit my dream of playing for Hull and playing an Old Derby for Hull. So it gave me a good taste of it. And I enjoyed it. And it was everything I thought it would be. And then I was very, very excited when I signed for FC, knowing that I could play against them in an Hull shirt now.
Come on, let's just upset a few people, because you've played in the Wigan Saints derby as well. I mean, is it the biggest one? Does it compare to anything?
For me, it's the biggest one. But what I'd say is I've played in the Wigan Saints ones. And what I would say is, obviously, normally the quality of game in the Wigan Saints one is normally, obviously, above it, because you've got Wigan Saints who, for the last so many years, have always been around the top four. And I remember playing for Wigan against Saints, some of them derbies, and it was some of the fastest games I've ever played in my career. So I feel like the speed of the game and the competitiveness of the game and the quality, obviously the Wigan Saints was right up there. But what I'd say with the Old Derby, for actual rival, hatred and banter in the city leading up to it, there's nothing what gets to it in the whole KR Derby, in my opinion.
I find in those games, whichever team takes the emotion out of it usually fares better, because you can get too caught up in the rivalry and the animosity between the fans and the clubs, and do things out of character, or maybe push yourself in certain areas and start too fast and fade away later on. And I always find in the Wigan Saints derbies I played in, and when I used to go watching Leeds and Bradford and watch the Hull derbies, I always find that the more composed team always do better, and sometimes the more emotional teams can be a little bit more reckless, and that end up fading away late in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the notice as well with me is when I was at KR, I think no matter what sort of year we was having, if we won the Old Derby, the fans were happy, and it was sort of, you was off the hook for whatever had happened that year. Whereas at Hull, we're obviously trying to be successful, trying to win things, and it's just with the last few years, it's been just thinking about it as another game into where we need to go that year. And our fans are happy just winning the Old Derby. So that's a bit of a difference as well.
But derbies are a really interesting thing, aren't they? You know, they're such a British, you know, I think just a really British concept. And you know, if we're in the sport of entertainment, and we're all, you know, entertainers, we entertain people, like the intensity that a derby brings, you know, like you said, Will, like I dreamt as a kid of playing for Hull KR against Hull FC, and never got the opportunity to do that. But in the Wigan Saints derby, you know, I came to understand the value of these rivalries that we've got, you know, like, and how much value they add to the sport. And it's only through working on the TV and doing bits on the TV that I realised the impact of the intensity of an atmosphere upon the actual product on the field. Now, we've all gone through COVID and done this thing where we're playing fake crowd noise and you know, none of that can replicate the intensity of walking out of a tunnel at the old Knowsley Road or at the DW Stadium or at the KC Stadium or at Craven Park on Derby Day. And that feeling translates to viewers who are watching in. And I just can't wait to get that sort of stuff back into the game, because I'm fucking so exhausted listening to fake crowd noise and actually hearing players on a field. You know, you'll know, Scott, you know, in a derby like that, you start to communicate in different ways, because you can't speak to each other, you can't hear each other. So for people who don't know, you're trying to communicate to your teammates. It's impossible to hear each other. So you're like non-verbally trying to sort of articulate each other. But the intensity of atmosphere, Scott, at the Hull derby is something else, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's mad thinking back on it now. I mean, the last derby we played in, it was the Hull derby. We played at St Helens ground last year in front of no fans in St Helens. The Hull derby was played, and it was nothing like a proper Hull derby packed out. And like you said, when you walk out, even just when you go out for warm up, the uproar in warm up is probably bigger than any cheer what's been done in any game that year so far. And then, like I said, when you walk out, it's unbelievable. You feel very lucky to be a part of it, but yeah, it's a proper good thing to be a part of. I love it.
How come it took you so long, Scott, to get to Hull FC then to sign for them? Because it was 2016 you joined them, but you must have been angling for a move there your whole career. And what was that day like when you finally signed for the club that you love?
Oh, it was class. It was good to be able to ring my family up that night and people close to me and Bretland Hughes. Look, I always wanted to win things in my career and be successful. Once got a taste of it, and that's the reason why I went to Wigan when I had the opportunity to go to Wigan. I wanted to play for one of the best teams in Super League, but as soon as I'd gone there and had success, learnt a lot and felt I knew where I was and what I needed to do, as soon as the opportunity arose to come back home, there was a lot of stuff going on at home at the time, and I was a few hours down the road. It ain't as easy when you're working hard at Wigan and on your one day off, you've got to drive through 2 hours, then drive back home. It's harder than people think to get across as much as you'd want. So when the opportunity come to sign at all, it's what I'd always wanted to do all my career, and I knew I'd be happy, and you can't put a price on happiness in life, so I knew I'd be happy if I come back home and sign for the team I loved.
Look, guys, I want to talk about sort of life after rugby because it's the perfect conversation to have with you three. Because, Scott, you've got your own car leasing company, and I think everyone in the fucking planet knows that these two clowns have got a coffee business. Very cliche, isn't it? Having oh yeah, look, we played rugby and then we'll rugby, coffee, it all goes hand in hand, and we make sort of sandwiches and a bit of
pot kettle black in case anyone
we know what it's called.
Pot kettle black.
We know what it's called. On a serious note, though, Scott, how big a sort of part of your thinking was life after rugby and to have yourself set up for that? Because you're younger than these boys. You're 30 and you've still got another 4 or 5 years on the pitch left.
Yeah, potentially, but no, I think when I come back home in 16, well, end of 15, ready for 16, I knew I wanted to sort something out. I mean, obviously, John and Mark have probably seen it more than me in my career, but I've played with certain players and seen certain ex-players who just finish the game and have nothing, and bump into one a few years after retirement and see him grafting on a building site, labouring, and just have no plans. And it just scared me, to be honest. It was something I was always thinking about, like, don't get caught too much in rugby all the time. Yeah, it's my main priority, but sort something out. So as soon as I come back to Hull, it was sort of right, let's get involved in something which I knew quite a bit about, because my dad's been involved in the car trade and car mechanic world for 40 years. So it's something I grew up with and something I was fascinated about.
And I'm interested to know how it might have affected your game, because I remember when we set up our business, I was hesitant that it might take my eye off the ball a little bit and my training or my playing might suffer. But I actually thought that it allowed me to focus solely on rugby when I was in the moment. But then when I was away from it, I could take my mind off it, and I actually performed and trained and played a little bit better because I wasn't just always consumed with rugby, and I had a bit more balance to my life. I wonder if you kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think being able to switch off from rugby when you get away from there sometimes is a big part of it, and that has massively helped me. I think since I started doing it, I think the year I set it all up and started everything rolling, I had probably the best 2 years playing in my career. In 16, 17, when it all started rolling, there was a lot of hard work went into it. But no, I think it's really balanced it out. But also, there's always that excuse there, and I have battled that a bit here and there, especially last year when I had my back injury, and I only played probably about 2-3 games in 7 months, and there was obviously a bit going on with the club, and Radford had been sacked, and I felt like there was a bit of thing coming at me of, because it was all as I was doing the showroom and all that was coming about, maybe my form wasn't as good as it should be. I felt like people were using it as a cop-out against me at times to say, are you fully focused on rugby? Well, yeah, I've been fully focused on rugby since I was 6 years old, and that'll never change.
John, was there a fear from your side of things, like an anxiety to a certain degree, that you just wondered what you were going to do after rugby and you felt like you needed to have something already in place for when you retired? Was it more of a financial incentive? What was the sort of motivation for getting your shit together and setting something up? Because look, you have built, with all credit to you and Mark, you built an empire between you.
Yeah, I was bored, Will. You get so much downtime as a rugby player, and I think you can productively fill that time with things. The biggest battle I had, I think, was when we started kicking off our business, and there was a lot of negativity. Look, I can completely resonate with what Scott's just said about this, linked to performance with you being distracted by other things. But I was walking into training after finishing training, going into Manchester, sort of sorting out business matters, having adult conversations, looking at P&Ls, putting together like strategies with Mark about marketing and hiring staff, firing staff, changing things. And I was going into training the following day with lads who'd been sat up till 3 a.m. on a PlayStation. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Do you know what are we putting out there as the example of what you should do? You've got downtime, and it doesn't matter what your job is. Be productive with your downtime. Do something that improves you, that moves you on, that is like great for your personal development. And in sport, we seem to celebrate the people who idly sit by and watch the career float by and get to the end of it, and lo and behold, they've got no idea what they're doing. And look, for all these guys who are out there posting videos of themselves playing like fictional war games online, get your head out your ass and do something with your time. Do something real with your time. Because my obsession with doing something well was about being productive, about investing in myself. And me and Mark have consistently done awkward things. Did we want to travel into Manchester and have a board meeting and scrutinise the GP on our food, on our drink? Did we want to have really tough conversations with staff who were letting go? Do we want to really understand the furlough scheme and how we can use it, or do we want to do all that? The answer is probably no, really. If you're really selfish and you just go, right, well, I'm just going to do exactly what I want to do all the time. But this is the sort of talk we've got to really get out there. It's real talk about what professional sports people need to do to further themselves. And selfishly, clubs will leverage and use this sort of stuff against players to stop them having outside interests. Well, look, I'm flipping it on its head, and we should all stand back and say to Scott Taylor and everybody who's criticised him maybe for having a business when his form wasn't good, is to say, you've got it so wrong, it's incredible. Because he's setting an example to so many other young players that you can go out there, you can have a business, you can create jobs for people, and you can be really competent at the job you're doing day to day. And that's the message we need to send people. Not this, sit back, cruise, keep under the radar, play PlayStation a bit, go out for a drink twice a month with the lads, post a picture of you, a butcher's with 12 sausages that they've given you for free or something, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Like, let's get the real stories out there. Scott's story is a real story, and he's not just started a business, he's smashing it. So that's a story. Do you know what I mean? That's it's awesome, it's incredible. And I'm not just saying that because me and Mark have done it and we're proud of what we've done. It's just out of hard work. You've got to choose, you've got a choice to make. Do I do this or do I do that? And whenever you choose the easy route, it never comes to anything good. Make some hard decisions, be productive, get out and do stuff. And that's what we've all done, right? All of us on this podcast have done that. You've done it, Will. You make tough calls all the time. You put your career first all the time. So I know you ask us loads of questions, but I'd say this to you as well, Will. You've had a dedication that's inspiring about what you've done in your career, and we need to celebrate these things because we're men and we're fucking stupid. We'll just sit back and not acknowledge all these great things that we've done. But Scott set up an amazing business. Me and Flash are smashing it at business, and you've got an amazing career, and it's all through hard work, and that's it.
But I guess, though, it's obviously completely incomparable to football, when you compare it to another elite level, because those guys at that time can be earning, between 100 and 200 grand a week, whatever, so they really don't need to work. Whereas, top rugby league players in this country, averaging out, you're not going to go over 100 grand a year, 100 grand a season. So you need to have other plans. But 100 grand a season, Mike would have spent that on hookers and all sorts of other things, casinos in the space of a few months.
one weekend.
But Scott, have you seen people, from your time at Hull KR, Hull FC, at Wigan, sort of fall by the wayside when they've retired? Whether that's come early because of an injury or just because it's that their time has come and they've just had no plan B, and it's quite disturbing to see sort of people's livelihoods fall apart.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, look, I've seen it a lot, and that's the scary thing. I mean, me as a fan growing up as well, at Hull FC, seeing some of the guys I used to idolise around the city now and where they are in their life, that was a big scary thing for me. But also on the other side of that, I wanna retire at the top of my game. I don't want to be a player who just keeps getting every penny they can out of the game and keep doing another year because they know they can get another contract. And I've played with players who I think in myself, I only retired yet. Like, why does he keep playing? Like, and when you
like Wilco at Toronto.
That was an
Yeah, but
experience.
Wilco doesn't get tackled, does he? So he was laughing.
Absolutely, mate.
But when I played with some of the front rowers who were still going, like, not naming any names because I don't want to be that guy, but look, I was just thinking I don't want to be him. I want to go out at the top of my game, be in a position where I don't need rugby financially at some point, and be that player who people say, oh, tag, why don't you play another year? He could play another year. Why is he retiring? And I want to be that guy, not the guy who played 2-3 seasons too long. And it's scary stuff now as well when you see certain things on the sport, certain injuries. And I know you can't link stuff like Rob Burrow and stuff like that to it, but it just makes you think, doesn't it, that health's a big priority as well. And if you can set something up so you're not taking them extra head knocks and them extra 300, 400 tackles in a season, then that's what I want to do.
I think another point is for your own like self-esteem and your own mindfulness. Really, Will referenced Premiership footballers who are on fortunes who probably don't have to take the option of setting up a business, but I think it's important for those guys as it is for rugby players, because it's more of giving yourself a purpose to do every day. When I retired, I was prepared for the next stage in my life, and I was really excited about what was to come. And I go to the coffee shops and every day, and I love it. But I think when some rugby players or sports people retire, they've played that sport for such a long time. It's let them define them as a person, and they've got no other outlets in their life to be passionate about. And I think it's really important for people to be a bit more balanced. And when you're coming out with sport, having something to do day to day, because I reckon a lot of ex-rugby league players, whether financial or not, I think most of them struggle adapting to the real world and not being a superstar rugby league player that's had loads of fans adulating over them for many years. I think it's that drop down to earth and that real life living that they struggle with. And I think that was something that I was really conscious of when we set up the business, that I wanted something that I was passionate about and I wanted to spend my life doing after I had to hang my boots up. So I think that's so important for young people.
Mm. It's that transition, isn't it, guys? Because, I mean, look, you see it with... And look, I can name a name in Ricky Hatton. I think that's pretty out there that, Ricky Hatton has had his struggles. And when he came out of boxing, I used to see him in all sorts of different places in Manchester. And it was sad. At first it was funny, but then it became sad because I saw him for years. And I went to the Costa Zoo fight. I went to all those big Hatton fights at the Manchester Evening News. And, saw a guy at the absolute top of his game. And then the next minute you see him dressed in a suit which is about 17 sizes too big in the press club with people just taking the piss out of him and hanging off him and just trying to get a picture and a video and whatever. And it's sad, sports people at that level. And I guess, Scott, you need that transition, don't you, that Mark's just described, where you have something waiting or you have a plan rather than just falling straight off the cliff and not walking down the street and going, look, there's Scott Taylor. I remember him. He used to play for Hull, because that disappears eventually.
Yeah, 100%. And just working stuff out, obviously, like Wilco and Flash must have done themselves, just looking at finances and knowing you've got a mortgage still to pay potentially, and just everything what comes and goes with rugby league. And you're getting told where to be every day, you're getting a schedule sent to you, you're getting bossed around, and then all of a sudden you're not getting told anything by anyone, and you do see stuff happen after careers what's scary and does frighten you. I think it's a mixture of everything what's made me do it, but look, I'm the same as Wilco and Flash. Like, after training, I actually do everything I need to at rugby. If I have to do extra rehab or whatever I'm doing, physio, I'm actually excited to go into the showroom and go in there and see the staff and speak to them and check how everyone's doing and making sure we've got a plan in place and what's a month looking like. And I really enjoy doing that. And I always get told off by my mum, dad, and my missus for being too busy because obviously for 4 years I was being head coach of a National League amateur team as well. And everyone would say, how do you find the minutes in the day and that? But I'd find them because I wanted to. And I like being active and I like being busy. My mind's always racing all the time about what to do next. So I don't think there's an excuse out there either why someone doesn't have the time to do it. Like Wilco said, a lot of lads are just sat at home, and that's how I think they get involved in gambling and stuff like that as well. I mean, when I was younger, I sort of went down that road a bit for a time being. I thought, because I'm getting at home in the afternoon, putting telly on, putting races on, you end up betting your money away what you're earning. It's madness.
How bad did that get? Was that a problem?
Oh no, it was just being a young kid, still living at home with his dad, finally earning good money. Well, earning really good money for like a 17, 18-year-old kid, and it's like, what do you spend it on? once you pay a bit of board and you've got that much money left in your bank, what you've never seen before, you think, oh well, I may as well just mess around with it. And I had to teach myself and learn life lessons myself as a young lad. Like, you start being smarter and sort yourself out.
Yeah. Look, I like to normally keep these podcasts timeless, whatever, but we can't sort of overlook the fact that all three of you have been running businesses through probably the most disruptive time this country's ever going to see economically. I mean, Wilco, what have the biggest challenges have that been for you? Because I know, I remember seeing you early days in the lockdown. I'd come down and keep you in business. I'd buy a few croissants. You were down at the bakery with your baker's hat on and making the sausage rolls in the morning, keeping yourself busy. But without taking the piss, it must have been a pretty torrid time, business-wise.
Yeah. Well, the tap just got switched off, didn't it, overnight? Especially for hospitality. There's no industry that got affected as quickly and as hard as what hospitality did. So there's, I suppose, like I think there was like 2 or 3 stages to it. The first was, panic, I suppose, disbelief, about maybe what was going on. I think we didn't really understand back then. I look back to, actually, we did a podcast, in Salford at the time, not far off the time, and we were sort of guessing, we were chatting about, how bad it might be and could be, and, we were wrong by, about a year, about how long it would last and whatnot. And I think the first stage is pure panic, like I said. The second is you get practical, and the third is you get some stuff done. Like, what else is there to do? Like, I think in life, right, is inherently tough. It throws challenges at you, whatever industry you're in, whatever life you lead, challenges are going to come at you. And you've just got to make yourself resilient enough to deal with them. Like, or what's the alternative? We just go to, we see countless examples of people who've built the resilience on shoddy foundations. Well, like, I'd like to think through time and through criticism and through failure and through learning that my resilience was built on a bit sturdier stuff than just shoddy foundations. So once I got over that sort of period of shock and maybe self-pity where you're like, why, like, the business is gone, what can we do? You start getting practical. And when I get in a practical mindset, I'm productive. And that's when ideas start coming. And for anybody in life who's faced with, like, adversity like that, I think the worst thing you can have is a really fixed outlook on how things might be. You've got to be open to things and change things and drive change yourself. And I think initially, after that panic and after that sort of like period of doom, me and Flash got really practical. We got our hands dirty. We changed things, and that's the only way you keep moving forward, right? And it's not just hospitality that was affected. Every industry was affected, but the most nimble people, the most nimble businesses have come out with new opportunities. And we've got 3 or 4 new opportunities that we didn't have before COVID that can be celebrated, and that's all through just not extending that grieving process, where woe be me, things are shit. like we didn't extend that period too long before we got practical about stuff.
One thing people definitely weren't doing during the pandemic was driving around, Scott, and certainly not leasing cars.
Yeah, that's it. It was tough for us at times. I think probably looking back now, at the toughest times, I'm just really proud that I could keep all my staff on the full salary. Looking back and knowing that they weren't missing out financially now, and the business is in a position where we could do that. It was really good to know we've done that. But no, like I said, we do all. I aren't just saying I'm just a lease. I do PCP, I do HP, I do cash. It's not just lease.
But Will.
Oh, that sounds great, Scott. Great deals.
This is your time to plug the business. They've plugged their stupid coffee shop.
Scott's phone number just goes like scrolling across the bottom now.
Yeah, that's it. Tina Elite Cars. But no, it was tough, but luckily we'd put ourselves in a position, and literally just before the pandemic we opened our new showroom, what we'd put so much money into and so much effort, and a month after that we went into full lockdown. So it was scary, but we knew we'd worked hard and got in a position where we could. It was sort of when it first happened. I remember the first time we sat down, it was like, right, if we're in this lockdown for however long, how long before the money runs out, sort of thing, and having that chat. So things got scary, but luckily, as things started reopening up, we could do the click and collect, and a lot more people were buying cars, and it's worked out really well now. And obviously now we're in a really good position, ready for things to be fully back open again.
I think what Scott touched on there with wanting to keep everybody in employment, that was something that John and I were really keen on. I think when you've got a business and you employ people, you're responsible for them and you're responsible for their families and mortgages to be paid. And we were lucky enough to keep all our staff on during the last 12 or whatever months it's been. And there was a quote in the Times. It was a chief exec of Appliances Online, a guy called John Robertson. He said, "Make every decision as if your mum's watching," and that kind of stuck with me throughout COVID. And we always tried to do the right thing by people, and I think if you're going to build a business long term, which is what we want to do, I think if you have that principle in place where you do right by people, and they'll give it you back tenfold in the end. And I think probably Scott and John and I, having been in a rugby league dressing room and having teammates that you care about, I think that's one thing that transcends into business, and that was something that was really important to us.
Is your mum watching now, Flash?
Yeah, she's just in the corner.
Oh, Sue Flanagan.
Scott, Sue Flanagan.
Nearly as much as Carol Wilkin.
Oh my God!
I thought actually John was going to say that she's at his house.
Yeah. No, we've done that one. Sue Flanagan though is an absolute rocket, Scott. If you've not met Sue Flanagan before, absolute rocket. She's right up there, isn't she, John?
Right, she is right up there. Oh, she's cut from very fine
Word has
cloth,
it that Carol Wilkin used to join Pip Wilkin on watching amateur rugby league on a Sunday morning, and she used to wear little denim hot pants. True or false, John?
That's why I signed up.
That's the He's like, "Hey, Scott, do you fancy signing for Hull KR?" And she's like that, little just denim tassels. Come this way, son. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. But the hot pants might be true, I think.
Look, Scott, you're a massive NFL fan. Boy after my own heart. I'm Buffalo Bills. What season the Bills have had. You're Denver Broncos, because I say that. There's two dogs behind you for those who are not watching. And one of your dogs is called Peyton, after Peyton Manning. How did the love for the Broncos come about?
It basically started when I was about 13, 14 and found Madden for the PlayStation. My cousin said, "Play as Denver Broncos, they're good." So I played as them, played the game, and then thought, I enjoy this, so I'll start watching it. And then
fucking hell, don't mention the PlayStation to Wilkin, Scott. He'll fucking rip you in your arsehole.
He's gone right down in my estimations. I was buzzing about it.
14.
No. I just used to burn things on the farm.
But look, I say that because that must have been a massive moment for you playing in the Mile High Stadium for England in Denver, June 2018. What a moment.
Yeah, it come with a lot of pressure. I remember when it got announced, I'd been involved in the World Cup squad the year before, and when they said it was going to be an American a test over in America against Kiwi, and they got announced it was Denver a few months before. Like, I just thought, in my head, you think, is it meant to be? I am going to be playing in that game, but then also it was the nerves of thinking I can't miss this opportunity. It's probably something I'll regret the rest of my life. I don't get selected, and I need to do everything I can to make my form as good as it can and make sure Wayne Bennett selected me. But when I did get selected and I did play, I just thought it was absolutely mental just how things work out in life sometimes. To have been a fan for a few years, well, going on probably 10 years or so, and then to actually play in that stadium in America, it was just mind-blowing for me. I was just in awe, really. It was a great week. And yeah, just unbelievable to play there, even though it was pretty quiet and like playing in COVID then, to be honest, how big the stadium is and how many fans were there. It was just an honour, really, and something look back on my career, it is a game I'll think, wow, I'm so happy I took part in that and had the chance to play there.
Have you ever been tempted by a crossover? Because I know, look, Christian Wade's just been re-signed by the Buffalo Bills. He's yet to play a sort of senior first team game. But go on, John.
Hold on a minute. We're not comparing Scott to Christian Wade, are we? Are we going to go down with that? We're not going down this road.
Antonio Brown Thompson.
Scott, jump in and save yourself, mate, because otherwise that's going to open up here.
I was literally just going to say, I'm not going to kid myself. I don't think there's one position in the NFL I could play.
Tight end. You can play tight end.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I remember when we got over there and I did an interview for Denver Radio and I said I'd be Denver's answer to Gronkowski. I reckon I could do a bit of a shift at tight end, potentially. But no, look, the freaks of athletes, and it's a different sport altogether. The amount of how much explosion and speeds in there, and obviously it's a lot more anaerobic and a lot more stop-start. But no, I wouldn't even attempt to cross over and try and play it.
Who was the fella I've forgotten? The Aussie who came from the NRL and he signed for the 49ers and then dropped the ball. Yeah.
No, Jared Hayne.
Jared Hayne played.
Jared Hayne, yeah.
And then there's a young lad from South Sydney who was like 6'9". Jordan Mailata, is it? Tag?
Yeah, but he's he went into like the offensive line, and I don't think he was a running. Well, yeah, he went into it, but Jared Hayne was a running back like Wade. Jared Hayne played a game for the 49ers in the warm-ups, and but his issue is when you're in the NFL there and they punt the ball to you, if you've got quite a few of the defenders around you, you're meant to call a fair catch, so you can just catch it. It's dead straight away as soon as you catch it, where Jared Hayne was doing what you do in rugby league and realising I'll catch it and try and run, and few fumbles happened, and that was the end of him, really.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember it was one high-profile fumble. It wasn't a Monday Night Football, but it was a televised game, and then the whole of America just jumped on his back, and that was the end of his NFL career. Look, in terms of touring stories, I want one of you. I reckon you've got a few touring stories up your sleeve. Was there any on that 2018 tour to the States? Because I know Wilco's got a few. I want you to exchange. Mark hasn't been on a tour. He hasn't been outside of
Never been
Salford
selected.
or Wigan. No. England Knights.
When I played for England Knights, it was a home game, so I wasn't fortunate enough to tour.
No. Go on, Scott. I'm putting you on the spot. What's your best touring story that you can tell us? Anything's appropriate on out of your league.
On the spot, not a clue. But I will say is when I got my first cap for England against France in end of 16. It was my first cap and debut. I remember in the week, sort of Wayne Bennett had tipped me up as if to say, you'll be playing, you'll get your first cap, and that's because the lads who played the grand final weren't going to back up more than anything. And then as a day or so led into it, I think Sam Burge just said to me, you'll be starting. And then we basically was at the top of the hotel in London, and we was literally about just to go for a team feed night out, and Wayne Bennett went, right, in a few days, a team against France, right, I'll just wheel it off the top of my head now. And basically, I got told I was starting the day two before, and he read through the first 13 players, so who was starting, and I was thinking, bloody hell, I'm not starting now, what's going on here? And then he read out the first sub, read out the second sub, and I thought I was playing here, I'm totally wrong getting my first cap. And then he just stopped for about 5 minutes. Everyone was just quiet. He was like, can't remember who the other two are. And then I think it was Dennis Betts, or I think it was JP actually was in his ear, and we just saw Kevin Brown with his real long neck at the back just like peer over, and he went, "Oh, Kev, yeah, Kev, you're on the bench." And then I sort of like with that I started putting my hand up. I thought, "Fuck it, I'm backing myself here. I'm putting my hand up. It's me." And then he looked at me and he went, "Oh yeah, you're in. Actually, you can start. You're starting." And you bear just twins. You flip a coin and see who's starting with tag. I was like, and that's how I got told I was making my debut on first England cap.
There's no better way. That's the best way. There's no better way than that. Absolutely not.
That's amazing. I can't remember what's allowed for broadcast and what's not, and I'm very bad at doing that because I sometimes out people and get them in trouble. But is the Sean Long pissing all over your passport one that we can tell? John, has that been told before? I can't remember whether that was allowed or not.
Yeah, well, it's allowed for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not against. I've got.
Or have you got better?
I've got no. Yeah, there's nothing that incriminates me at all. I'm throwing Sean Long under the bus. So when I think it was 2006, and we were touring Australia, we were staying at the Manly Pacific in Sydney, beautiful hotel, like 5-star hotel, and Brian Noble, the coach at the time, was really aware that there was a bit of a split in the team. I think there was like 8 Leeds lads, 8 Saints lads, and he was like really paranoid that we'd all room together. So he did like a ballot at the front door. He was like, right, draw all your names into a hat. 6 weeks, I want you to room with somebody you're not familiar with. Anyway, everyone's picking names out and whatnot, and they're all pretty much random or, like all split up and whatnot. And I remember pulling out my name. And when you know this man, when you unravel and see this man's name and you're living with him for 6 weeks, like I was shit scared, like instantly. So I opened the piece of paper and it's Sean Long, right? And there's a few things you need to know about Longy. One, he was wild like back then. But if he had a couple of beers, he'd just wet the bed. You know what I mean? And there's men all around the country. There's men listening to this. There's men sat in front of bookshelves in the south of England right now who probably wet the bed after a couple of pints. But Longy was just renowned for it. And a bit like Tag was saying, the grand final team weren't going to feature for the first week. So he said to us lads, I think it was Saints and Hull actually in that final, he said, right, you guys get out and enjoy Sydney for a few days. And I think Longy must have wet the bed consecutively for about 4 days. And his mattress was out on the Manly Pacific balcony in front of the Manly Promenade with just a little sort of round yellow stain in it, like for 4 days consecutive. Not only that, we were going from Sydney to New Zealand, back to Sydney to New Zealand to Brisbane. We were flying everywhere. And I only realised, I think it was the night before our first flight out of Sydney, that Longy had also took a slash in the bedside drawer that had my passport in it. So my passport had puffed up to like the size of a shredded wheat. It was like that thick. The pages were that thick. It was just trying to get through fucking passport security, and the guy's like thumbing through my passport like that. And I was like, oh. Yeah, but rooming with Longy for 6 weeks was it was a disaster, mate. It was just terrible. Terrible.
Look, I'll tell you what as well, because we've kept you long enough, Scott. But just to appease some more of the trolls, I don't know why I try and appease the trolls, because we used to just make this podcast and just do what the hell we wanted. But now, because it's a little bit more semi-serious, we've got to, keep some of them happy anyway. But some of them are like, you never talk about fucking rugby league or what's happening currently. So here you fucking go. And I want to just
Who's
talk
saying
about
that, Will? Will,
Who's saying that?
Who's saying that?
Will?
Who's actually saying that? Is it anybody saying
media,
that?
John, you don't. Yeah,
I know, but
don't at me.
It's a 12-year-old kid. It's a 12-year-old kid who's playing NFL in his bedroom. Will, don't be worried.
Phil
about
Wilkin's
it.
going to find him. Phil Wilkin will find you. No, but in all seriousness, we should be talking about Hull, because you guys, again, not timeless, but you're flying right now. What's it been like under Brett Hodgson now? Obviously losing Lee Radford, who we now know is going to go off to Cass at the end of the season. But really great start to the season for you guys.
Yeah, look, it's been good. I think I think obviously what Andy lasted at the end of last year with us sort of like started to change things a bit and put us in a bit of a better position. And obviously Hodgson's come in and really hit the ground running, brought everything in. It's his first gig as head coach, so for so many years he's probably had in his head, as soon as he turns head coach, what he's going to do, what he's going to change, how he's going to act. And he's come in and he's been really good. He's got the boys really together. I think it's probably the most together our group's been for a long time, and there ain't any toxicness, there ain't any words going behind the scenes, and everyone's buying into what he's brought in. He's a very smart guy, and the good thing is as well, he ain't that long retired and knows what it's like, and he's played the game at the highest level, so automatically had that respect as well. Look, all the boys are buying in. He's worked really hard with us. You can see he's putting a lot of hours in. And the boys are responding. I'd say obviously it's a long year and we're going to have some bigger tests to come, and sometimes you lose a game or two, the pressure starts, but at the minute everything's working well.
How's Gaz Ellis doing on his coaching role?
He's doing, do you know what, mate? He's shocked me. He's done a lot better than I thought he would. He's actually doing really, really well. Because like I said, you're close with Gaz, and obviously, well, you both are, and you both played with Gaz. Look, he transitioned after retirement into a bit of a football manager role, more of like a behind-the-scenes role. And then when he come back out of retirement, he's now transitioned, and he's with the boys every day. He's enjoying the coaching. I think Hodgson's helped him a lot. But no, I'm really, really pleasantly surprised of how Gaz has changed the coaching, being able to differentiate himself from one of the boys, but still do what's needed, and how he's took on the role and the hours he's putting in. He's doing really well, Gaz.
Because he was a great leader, and having played with him, he was always a guy that led by actions, and he's a smart guy, but he never really relied on his talking and vocalising how he was to lead, and that was something that I spoke to him about. That he said that he was conscious of, that he would have to change if he was to be a coach. So it's probably quite good to hear that.
Mine was about your defence, Scott. So, for those rugby roys who were sat at home, in their, the budgie smugglers wanting to hear about rugby talk. For me, if we're talking about the performance side of the game, there's been a big improvement in your D, hasn't there, as a team? That defensive mindset and that robust sort of defensive attitude. Is that something that Andy started last season, or is that a Brett Hodgson, thing that he's brought in?
No, that's obviously we started to improve under last year and things changed. But Hodgson come in. He made didn't beat around the bush, obviously, and we all know our defence was shocking, too inconsistent, and something we had to work hard on. And since Hodgson's come in from day one of pre-season, we've spent a lot of time on the defence, and it's good because, as you know, if you're good defensively, you're always going to be in games. And don't get me wrong, we should have maybe closed out that Wakefield game earlier. We should have never have gone to Golden Point with Warrington. Our offence ain't been great, but it's a big difference. When your defence is good, you're always going to be in games, and it's a lot easier to correct your offence in training. When you're having short turnarounds, if your defence is poor, like you know yourself, when you're going on the field and you're trying to bash each other up on short turnarounds and work on your defence and try and change it overnight, your defence, it just doesn't happen. It's not possible. So we worked really hard, 10 weeks of pre-season on it, and it's paying dividends now. Everyone's in the system, everyone's buying into what we're doing, and like you know as well, when you have a tight group, as well as that defence, you work that extra hard without even knowing, and you scramble for your mate even more, and it's something that's been really brought in, and something we can hopefully keep going with.
I know you said, Scott, hadn't you, in pre-season that you were sick of hearing how good Hull FC could be on paper. And the cynics, the rugby league cynics, or the KR fans, whatever you want to call them, they would say, well, look, you've had a good start, but how's it different? And because you often have good starts, how's it different to any other year?
Yeah, look, that's true. I was sick of hearing that because we had a few poor years, and you obviously aren't good on paper, are you? Or you haven't got a good team, because if you're not winning games and losing 14 games in a row, then you're not good. Let's be honest. But no, yeah, the six are out there. We're keeping grounded. Look, we're not putting any big goals on it and saying we're going to win this, we're going to go here, we're going to go that. We made a real conscious effort at the start of the year of, right, let's get 10, 15 games in, see where we're at, see what the competition's like, and then we'll kick on again for the rest of the year. And that's been the biggest thing for us. We're not putting pressure on ourselves, but we're going into games knowing that we've earned the right to go there and win no matter who we play because we're putting the hard work.
So before we came on, Scott, you were saying about how you're going to go on and win everything this year. That you're not standing by that now.
No,
he didn't say that. He didn't.
He did. Look, we had Paul McShane on last week, and he's going to have a new boss, isn't he? Because your old coach Lee Radford replacing Daryl Powell at the end of the season. Is that a good move, you think, for Lee? I mean, you've watched him as a player at Hull FC, and of course, you won 2 Challenge Cups under him as well.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good move. I think, obviously, it was real shame the way it ended at Hull FC for him and what a successful coach he was at Hull and what he did for us. But obviously, when you've been at a team for 5, 6, 7 years and head coach, sometimes, obviously, maybe the messages don't come across as strong and some players get too comfortable and it happens in sport. But look, he's gone away, and the best thing I think about Rad is he's not jumped into anything. He obviously put his name to go into America and help Rugby Union, but I think that was just something where he could get away and do and concentrate on away from Rugby League for a while, and he's waited for the right opportunity to come. I know how hard he works and how much he loves the game, and he's been waiting for a chance to get back involved at the right time. And I spoke to him yesterday about it. Dropped in there, if you need someone on marquee money, I'll happily come with you, pal. No, joking.
Sure, big time.
Can we edit out? I'm joking.
Scott, come on, mate. You don't have to kid us. There was at least an element of the conversation was, how's your front row looking, Brad? Is what you saying? What you saying? 3 years.
Do you need a new car?
3 years, 150. I'm yours.
Radder's mindset behind that, because he is the tightest man I've ever met, is he just wants to car share with someone. So he's probably ringing around all the old boys and thinking, "Who fancies a gig there so I can car share and save some money on fuel?"
That's not good for business, Scott. You don't want these car sharers, do you?
No, definitely not.
Look, that's the serious rugby chat done. We'll finish off this week, Scott, with a little quiz for you, because I know you're a Broncos fan. So a Denver against Hull quiz, right? Let's see how you fare in this one. This is pretty tricky. I didn't come up with this myself. We've even got a producer these days. He's come up with this one.
Will, you shithouse. You're an absolute shithouse. Mate, when it's a quiz that he likes, he puts his name to it. But, it's a quiz he's not sure about. He's like, I'm not sure how it's going to go down. So, Will, back yourself.
I was merely saying...
This is the real quiz.
No, it's tight. Some of the questions are so tight that, I think it's going to be interesting. Okay, here we go. Look. Which stadium opened first? The KCOM, of course, in Hull, or Empower Field in Denver? Which one opened first, Scott?
Oh, I think I'd go with the KCOM.
You're wrong by a year. Empower Field 2001, the KCOM 2002. 0 so far, Scott. The next question.
Everybody knew that. Everybody knew that one.
What is higher, the number of Challenge Cup victories for Hull FC or Super Bowls, he's got to get this one, for Denver Broncos? Challenge Cups for Hull FC, Super Bowls for the Broncos.
Challenge Cups for Hull FC. Hull FC have won more. Denver have won 3 Super Bowls, and Hull FC have won 4 or 5, I think.
Very good. Hull FC 5 and Denver 3. He's got a point. 1 out of 2. Yeah. Who's older? Denver's Super Bowl winning quarterback, also your dog is named after him, Peyton Manning, or Hull FC legend and Mark's best friend, Gareth Ellis? Who is older, Manning or Ellis?
Manning's older.
He is, significantly. 6 years, 45 for Manning. Ellis is 39.
The guy looks older.
He looks older. He looks like he's had his face sandpapered, Ellis, doesn't he? I wouldn't say that to his face, though. Scott Taylor tries for Hull FC. Drew Lock passing touchdowns for Denver Broncos. Who has the most? You got 2 out of 3 so far.
I'm going to back myself here just because Drew Lock's shocking and we need a new QB ASAP. And say I've scored more.
Whoa,
Scott Taylor, how many do you reckon he scored? Tries
he
for
knows
FC.
Exactly.
26.
I'll go 15.
No, you've done yourself down. You should have had a wild stab in the dark at 19 tries for Hull FC Scott Taylor. 23 passing touchdowns for the Broncos, Drew Lock.
Oh.
And we move on to the final question, which is...
somewhere is there an alternative quiz going on where Drew Lock is being asked the same question. And he's just said, you know what Hull FC need to do? They need to get rid of Scott Taylor. He's shit. We need a new front row race up.
It's like because the draft is Thursday night. I'm like prodding the Broncos to draft someone first round.
Right.
So you got 2 out of 4. The fifth question is this, just to salvage a bit of pride. The average yearly number of vehicles that pass over the Humber Bridge in Hull, or the average yearly visitors to the Rocky Mountain National Park in Denver. What is higher?
It's such a shit question.
I'll go with the Denver. Up the Denver.
You'd think so. Humber Bridge, 6.24 million idiots cross that bridge every single year. Rocky Mountain National Park, 3.31 million. Nearly double.
Sorry,
Nearly double.
There,
You've let your city down. Scott, top man, mate. Really enjoyed that last hour. Thank you so much, mate. And all the best with the business. I hope that gets back and flying. And Hull FC, you guys are already flying in these early stages. Thanks, mate, for coming on.
Cheers, lads. Spot on. Thank you.
Cheers, Scott. Good man.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Out of Your League. We'll have a new episode for you every week, available to download from wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Don't forget, give us a follow. Troll us. There's plenty of you out there at Out of Your RL on
Give
Twitter.
us a review as well. Give us a
Be
review.
seeing you.
A good review.
The reviews aren't good, by the way, Mark. They've gone down. We're not 5 stars anymore. We're at 4 point something. See you next week, you little buggers.